Crane Durham, guest hosting for Kevin McCullough. Keeping the seat warm. He'll be back tomorrow. Weather willing, it is great to be with you. Thank you for taking the time. You can catch me. My program is on in the afternoon, and specifically 5 to 6:30 Central, 6 to 7:30 Eastern. Want to send a big shout out and a prayer to those who are suffering from the impact of the weather, the family, and in regard to this. And we pray for safety and being delivered from the weather that we are seeing. Something to keep in mind. So, nothing but truth, yes. 6 to 7:30 Eastern, just to highlight that. Let's get back to it. AFA today, last night, and a great deal of discussion. We've been doing a great deal of discussion on our program about the Constitution. And people sit back and may think, okay, that's a bit dry. When you talk about the Constitution, it doesn't seem like a lot of people care anymore. And I think that has a great deal to do with how we've treated our history. Well, what do I mean? I mean the fact that we're not respecting the parameters of what the Constitution outlines and what was before that outlined in our Declaration. And to understand that, we have to understand that we are fallen. We cannot evolve in the sense of human nature, nor do I believe in evolution otherwise. The point is this. There is a belief among statists, people that believe in statism, that human nature evolves, and once you are elected to federal office, oftentimes, but state office you can put in there, you get wings and a halo, and you're no longer subject to your own self-interest. This is simply not true. And what we see with the Constitution is not only the parameters set forth with the division of powers, Article 1 going to Congress, Article 2 the President, Article 3 concerning the judiciary and the checks and balances. But what happens when the Article 2 guy says, I want to just do what Article 1? Why the legislative process is so important is because when you have the umbrella of the United States, federal government of the United States, the experiment with individual states under federalism of people working things out, and this is a big part of it, working things out, having that discussion, going back and forth about what we believe. For example, with the issue of life, what did the Supreme Court do? Well, they took it out of the state's hands. We're taking it back, by the way, and that's a beautiful thing, because the more we talk about what abortion is, we find people are going to have their hearts and minds changed as long as we speak and are salt and light and speak truth and love. That's the desire. That's a prayer for each and every one of us. What I get is that the power of the federal government is an umbrella over all of that, and once that is done, there is no place to escape to. There's no real place to have the debate unless it's on a national stage, and then you've got the federal government holding and establishing sometimes positive rights, sometimes negative rights being the defense of yourself and individual liberties, and positives making it a right that's going to put something on you to pay and extract, in essence. I mean, and I'm speaking generally to specific cases. Overall, what I'm talking about is power and the understanding that we want to have a debate and we want to have true consensus, not global warming consensus. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about true consensus where a law can reach a point where we are all on the same page and supportive of that, because law is, in essence, the establishment of morality. Now, I don't want to lose you here. I think you know where I'm going with this. But if we understand that and we have a respect for it, we realize that, yeah, it's going to be a pretty arduous process to go through and make law. It's tough. It takes a long time. And it was meant to be that way. It's frustrating, isn't it? Yeah. And there was genius in putting the way the houses were established, one indirectly elected until, I forgot the 18th, 19th Amendment, pardon my ignorance on this, or forgetfulness rather, when it comes to the state senators electing the state government's legislators electing senators. But then we went to direct election. But the people with the power, our founders understood, were at the purse strings. And that's why we find that revenue bills have to come out of the House. All right. That's why it's tied to that. They wanted that. They had, I mean, it's really amazing when we study the Constitution, what our founders understood about power and how there would be checks on things. So what happens when a president gets a law passed not a single Republican signed on for, not about R's or D's, but it is about accountability, and just starts changing it? What does that mean? There are some who say, hey, I agree with the changes. It makes things better. Okay. But there are consequences for that. And there's a reason we go through the process. The president is undermined that process. And that's an understatement. Because he's changing the law. He's saying, oh, yeah, that mandate, employer mandate, yeah, now we're pushing that one back. Dr. Charles Krauthammer last night spoke to this and the consequences of it about the law in the president's mind, the executive's mind. What is the law to President Obama? Here's the doctor. Roll it.
Remember how Democrats were complaining that when Republicans were trying to overturn Obamacare, it was somehow unpatriotic because it was an attack on the law of the land. This law of the land doesn't even exist. It exists in Obama's head. It's whatever he thinks. He wakes up in the morning and decides what the law is going to be. That, as an understatement, that's not the way it's supposed to work. And we had an editorial in the Washington Post, of all places, not exactly a right-wing rag, saying that Obama has really overstepped the lines, arbitrarily changing the law, and usurped what Congress is supposed to do.
Constitutional expert and lawyer Jonathan Turley weighed in on this last night on the Kelly File, speaking to the issue of just how serious this was. He was asked that question. Just how serious is this, these changes in the law that President Obama has gone forth with? Roll it.
Well, I'm afraid it's quite serious because the framers created a system that was designed to avoid one principal thing, that's the concentration of power in any one branch, because that balancing between these branches in this fixed orbit is what not only gives stability to our system, but it protects us against authoritarian power. It protects civil liberties from abuse. And what we've been seeing is the shift of gravity within that system in a very dangerous way that makes it unstable. And I think that's what the president is doing. I think that we've become a nation of enablers. We are turning a blind eye to a fundamental change in our system. I think many people will come to loathe that they remain silent during this period.
And that silence has a cost. And so why is it so dangerous, and what exactly will the consequences be? Roll it.
Well, I'm afraid this is beginning to border on a cult of personality for people on the left. I happen to agree with many of President Obama's policies. But in our system, it is often as important how you do something as what you do. And I think that many people will look back at this period in history and see nothing but confusion as to why people remained so silent when the president asserted these types of unilateral actions. You have a president who's claiming the right to basically rewrite or ignore or negate federal laws. Now, that's a very dangerous thing.
It's a very dangerous thing. But what have you agreed with the president? Your thoughts. 1-888-589-8840. 1-888-589-8840. What of the changes that we are seeing right now are actually a law that you may support? Maybe they are. Do you have a problem with this abuse of power? 1-888-589-8840. 1-888-589-8840. I find it very interesting that when we're going to get to this next segment, but we're going to get your calls this segment, about how to encourage debate and foster it and to make sure we get someplace. But I remember Newt Gingrich talking about the process of, hey, you've got to convince people in the grassroots level. You got to get people engaged. That's a part of this. And I've always believed in that. Unfortunately, a lot of those on the left do not. And that's why you don't have the engagement, and oftentimes trying to shut us down as conservatives, as Christian conservatives, as demonizing, and oftentimes what devolves into just mere character assassination. So those are the thoughts of, do you encourage debate? I mean, if somebody disagrees with you, do you engage as well? But the question right now, 1-888-589-8840, is this. What if you agree with the president? Would you support this type of action? Buddy in the great state of Texas. How are you, buddy?
Fine. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
When the president first started, I thought fast horse don't run too far, but he's gotten away with murder and actually done it. He's got blood in his hands. But if nobody does anything, nothing's going to happen.
And people need to get involved. Now, I will say this. There were people on the left during George W. Bush's time who accused the president of murder as well, and a whole host of things. Now, I look at issues and the responses to Benghazi and a whole host of things, and certainly there is a tremendous responsibility as commander-in-chief, and you are held accountable inevitably through the legal process of election or re-election, and that way. I get the idea that you're not in favor of somebody, even if you agree with them, buddy, but thank you for your phone call. You respect the Constitution. Let's go to Sherry in the great state of Georgia. Sherry, first off, hope you're doing well during the snow and being hit by it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we're doing really good. We've been blessed. We haven't got hardly anything here, so we're right in the middle of it. But my thoughts are, people are not keeping silent. I know personally, we have written, we have faxed, we have called. Mm-hmm. When the Benghazi thing happened, before the second election, they didn't even mention it. Our representatives are too chicken to stand up to what Obama's doing. He's letting the judges override what the state people are voting in. He is just doing whatever he wanted. When he was first running, he said he would change America. He would make America where you would never even recognize America. And that is exactly what he's doing. But I know that people are not being silent. But he's just overriding everything that anyone is voting in, every state.
And Sherry, it does expose a whole lot. Number one, about what he said about being transparent. Again, those people listening who are on the left, welcome to the table. Great to be with you. It's not about the president personally. It's about an executive who makes these declarations and promises, and then we see how it lines up with the record, and we find it does not. And he tries to silence his opposition. Specifically, he targeted Fox News, specifically the use of the IRS. Now reports are that 100% of the organizations, at least the latest headline from Gateway Pundit, seeing that information, it was already 80+%, so it's not that much of a turn of using that kind of organization, the most feared in the land domestically through our government, to target individuals and organizations in those organizations from speaking out and doing what they were constitutionally and lawfully allowed to do. So, Sherry, I know you continue to speak out, and and thank you. And we all say keep speaking out. But sooner or later, there's going to become a threshold where they cannot ignore it. And they're already there because they're already using the mechanism of power rather than attempt to actually persuade us. He's gone beyond persuasion. Now it's just power. And Saul Alinsky, we just need to look at that, and we've seen it. And I'm sure you know that big time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is. And we're praying and we're standing on the word, and the principalities and the powers of the air over America are completely what we have to stand against. And just, I mean, it's not the person per se,
right,
in the long run, but the short run, it is. So, and
well, it's holding people to account. It's holding people to account in these ideas. And oftentimes, and Sherry, thank you so much for the phone call. Oftentimes we sit back and we say, oh, you know what? It's not the person, but we got to have accountability. And anytime we try to get accountability from people who make promises and then break those promises or do something that's outside the law, all of a sudden it becomes not about the issue at hand that we're talking about. It becomes a personal attack, and they throw in some ridiculous ism. So I hear you big time. Let's go to Kurt. And Kurt, thank you. Great state of Michigan. Go ahead, my friend.
Hi. I just wanted to say I think he's overstepping our constitutional rights by bypassing Congress. He's been doing this since 2010 with the Affordable Care Act, forcing Americans against their will to buy into something that has done nothing but destruction. It's hurt our economy. Our debt is almost tripled since he took office. And I'm just wondering, when are they going to have some fiscal responsibility before they destroy the dollar, destroy the future of every American born? Every kid born is born into 100.
Intergenerational theft on top of it all. Kurt, you the laundry list, and you could continue, man. It's great to have you, and thank you for bringing that to us. Yeah, I'll tell you when it stops. When enough people hear the truth, and that's up to us. We've got to be a part of things. We got to continue to engage. And remember, the more they try to shut us down, sends a big signal to me. They're terrified because they know people are waking up. They have no choice. They're impacted by it on a daily basis. That's what Obamacare has done. You know, there's something to be said for always overplaying your hand. I remember something. That happens, doesn't it? And they have. Brain Durham sitting in for Kevin McCullough. AFA Today. More on the flip side. AFR Talk.